noise.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. Hey, before we get started with today's show, I just want to draw your attention to new merchandise. Funk and Stuff and Truth and Rhythm designs are in, and they look pretty darn cool. So show your support, help support the program, and show off some stylish merchandise and apparel. Only at the Funk and Stuff store. I'm honored to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership, Darryl Gibbs, saxophonist, composer, and producer, best known for his contributions to the R&B funk dance band Crown Heights Affair. Founded in 1967, the band went on to release 9 studio albums from 1974 to 1983, with a half dozen reaching the R&B Top 50. The group's 6 Top 40 R&B singles included Dreaming a Dream, Every Beat of My Heart, Foxy Lady, Dancin, and Dance Lady Dance. Other acts Gibbs played with include Made in U.S.A, the Strikers, and Zinga. Daryl, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm feeling good. It's a good. Everything's wonderful, man. I can't complain.
Oh, so glad to hear. Thank you for carving some time out to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Where are you today?
Well, I live in Bryningsville, Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Brooklyn, but you know, as years go on, I moved to Pennsylvania. Love it here. About an hour and change from Philadelphia.
And where are you from originally?
I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised.
All right. I think maybe we talked about that. I said my parents were from that area too, so yeah. But I was the new generation out on the West Coast, but now I'm back on the East Coast, so I'm right there with you.
All right.
So glad we get to talk about Crown Heights Affair, if I can get it out today. It's certainly a popular group with our audience, and one that I think has not maybe gotten as much attention as it should. So we're anxious to shine that spotlight on that history today.
Well, sure, I can do that. You know, the group is originally from Brooklyn. and that's where it all started. And it started, like you said, in the late '60s. Started with a rhythm section called the New Day Express, and that was with the founding leader, William Anderson, the legendary William Anderson. He started the group, and we all were in the Bushwick, Bed-Stuy area, and they didn't have horns in their group. They just had a rhythm section and a singer. Anderson decided one day that he wanted to add horns in the group, and I was one of the guys that name came up, and because I had played with a number of bands in the area. So I went down and auditioned for the band, and I made it. So we started something new.
And, coming into that situation, were you formally trained on saxophone, or how did you get into playing a horn?
Well, I started originally as a violin player in junior high school. And when I got into high school, I decided to switch over to sax because there was nobody knocking my door down for violin players. Most of my buddies played guitar, bass, more macho instruments. So I switched over to sax, and I learned sax. It was pretty easy because I already knew how to read music, playing violin and everything. So it was just a matter of me learning how to blow.
And what was your go-to sax? Was it alto or tenor or?
Alto sax.
Yeah. So who are some of your heroes and idols on sax?
Well, the main person that really inspired me to want to play sax, my father used to take us up to the Apollo all the time, up in Harlem. And he took me one time, and they had a Motown review up there. And Junior Walker in the All-Star, even though he played tenor, I loved when he hit that high note and the crowd would go nuts. And I love that. And I told my dad, I want to play sax. And I was fortunate enough to switch over when I got into high school. So the music programs were more prevalent in those days than they are now. So I switched over and doing up a sax, and I started playing.
And was music something that, was big in your household, or, how did you gravitate toward that, and why?
Well, my father tried because he bought a piano for my sister. My younger brother played trumpet. My other brother at that tried to play trombone. And so my father tried to encourage us. I used to take my brothers and sisters out to the Jamaica schools of music years ago out in Jamaica, Queens. We used to get on the train and ride out there. And, one by one, though, my brothers and sisters sort of fell away, and I stayed with it. So that was it. I gave up on everybody else. He wholeheartedly supported me in the music.
And what were some of the first gigs you ever did, playing with a band in front of people?
Well, we started out where I grew up in Bushwick. There were bands on just about every block. Every other block had bands. So there were some venues in the area. We did a lot of block parties. We did birthday parties. We did weddings, things of that nature. And we also had a lot of talent shows. And at our junior high school, big Catholic school in our area was 14 Holy Martyrs. And they had a banquet sort of room, and they would have dances on the weekends, things of that nature. So we all had a chance to play at the different venues. My biggest break came in the late 90s, going into 1970. The band that I was with prior to being with Crown Heights, I was with a band called the Soul Image. And we had a lot of horns and everything. We auditioned for the Cheetah back in those days, which was one of the biggest clubs in New York. And we made it. And we got to play there 2, 3, 4 nights a week.
Were you playing mostly covers or some originals, or
cover tunes? Yes, a lot of James Brown, a lot of R&B things, Sam and Dave, all kinds of stuff back in those days. But it was mainly cover tunes.
And who are some of the groups that you sort of idolized at that time, besides like James Brown, which is an obvious influence, but were there some others?
Well, really had the pleasure of opening up for all the name acts of the day back in the early 70s. And I mean, you're talking Sam and Dave, you're talking the Stylistics, um, Jimmy Castor Bunch, just about anybody you can name, the Shy Lights, the Five Stair Steps, everybody, because everybody played with the opening act to, warm the crowd up for the big show. So I everybody.
What was there anyone in particular that just kind of blew you away?
Well, the baddest band, and I tell everybody this, one of the baddest bands that I remember was a local group called Willie Feaster and the Mighty Magnificents, featuring Skip, Sonny, and the Pace Brothers. They were about the baddest band out in Queens, New York in those days. And they had a couple of records out, Make Me Your Slave, the Funky Acorn, which was very popular. They went on to actually record The Moments and all those singing groups back out of Jersey with the all platinum label. And they were my idols at that time, because I never saw a band as bad as that.
Wow. And they get to live on because you get to actually mention this group that probably not many people would know of right now.
Well, so. In Queens, they know it. You better believe that.
Local legend.
Yes, they are a local legend, without a doubt. And I'm friends with a lot of the guys now. Willie Feaster is still alive. He's on, but guy knew talent. He knew how to put stuff together, and he was blessed with wonderful musicians.
So, I've had some guys on the show and from that area of Jamaica, Queens, and it's such a rich melting pot of incredible music. I mean, such a rich area of the country, that especially jazz and funk. And do you have any theories about why that area in Queens is just such an incredible musical hotbed?
Well, a lot of your famous jazz musicians moved out there, and a lot of the younger musicians were able to study under these guys, and they focus more on jazz sort of thing. Whereas in Brooklyn, it was raw. Guys learned how to play. They learned a lot on their own. They're self-taught, and a lot of them. We traded a lot of things to do. Like, for example, I learned how to growl, from an older guy who taught me how to growl into the sax. I learned circular breathing, talking to a lot of the old. And I used to hang in Queens a little bit. I was scared to death because first thing they asked you was, who did you study with? I didn't study with anybody. I mean, I studied in school. A lot of my basic music theory and things came from school. And I learned how to read, as I stayed in junior high school. So the rest was books. Books, I learned a lot on my own. I practiced a lot with the guys in my band. We were very, very, very tight. Soul Image, that was the first big band that I was with. We had a big horn line, nice rhythm section, and we had two singers. So we had a big show band. And, I've got pictures of the band. But that ultimately, the big, big difference, even in the music. Brooklyn music is funky, it's groovy, it's raw. Queens is a little bit more refined. They've got jazz sort of changes. How they vamp their chords are more jazz oriented as opposed to Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, I believe more Brooklyn bands were on the chart than Queens.
Well, I think especially in the early and mid 70s.
Yes, and I'm not type at Queens. So guys, if you see this, don't take it personal. But we were raw and funky. I mean, come on. You had groups like Brass Instruction, BT Express, come on, list goes on and on. Mandrill, Crown Heights Affair, Made U.S.A, Strikers. I mean, come on. The list goes on. And in the 70s and 80s, we did rule more so over the Queens musicians.
So, Daryl, what was the first time that you ever got into a studio? Was it with Crown Heights Affair, or did you get in a studio before that?
I had a couple of early attempts, but no, my actual recording experience started with Crown Heights Affair because we did a lot of stuff and we were able to hone our craft. And I would like to say that even though I did leave the group, I recorded every Crown Heights album. I'm known for my horn arrangements. Me and the guys got along. We were friends. I just wanted to go into a slightly different direction. And so I left the group and I started my band.
What year did you get with Crown Heights?
Early 70s, 72, 73. Our first album was on RCA. And I believe that was 74, 75, somewhere around there.
And how did you connect with those guys initially?
Well, Anderson knew me because, you know, the William band leader. And when they decided that they wanted horns in the group, you know, my name came up, you know, a lot of guys from the area. And I went down to see what was going on. And I kind of liked what I saw, you know, and I said, yeah, right, that. You know, at that point, my other group was sort of breaking up. So I said, well, let me go ahead. And I like two of the guys, particularly Anderson. Anderson's always been a hardworking guy and, you know, very loyal.
What was the vision for the group at that point, you know, in the first album and, you know, in terms of the sound and the presentation and the ambition and all that?
Well, we actually wanted to do a little bit of everything. To me, my very, very favorite Crown Heights album is the very first album on RCA. And I say that because it was a lot more versatile. I mean, we did country, we did funk, we did stuff that was gonna emulate what everybody was about. Our original lead singer was Julius Dilligard. He also was one of the baddest trombone players. Now, I'm talking the original band, okay? Julius, we had another guy, Stan Johnson, which was our original keyboard player. He was classically, the guy played in church, he played organ, as well as piano. You know, he was very, 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 very versatile. He actually brought the synthesizer into our music, and we have a little bit of that on the first album because synths were starting, you know, to come in there. We had Arnold Wilson on bass. He didn't start out as a great bass player because I remember before when they were in rhythm section, I used to go to their rehearsals sometimes, and I would tell him, "Hey man, when are you gonna learn how to play bass?" You know, and he said he never forgot that. Next time I saw him, he was one of the baddest guys in the neighborhood.
You lit a fire under him.
Oh yes, Ray Rock, drummer. You know, I'm talking the original band. Ray Rock was 15, 16 years old, kicking the heck out of those drums. And of course, Anderson's always been a very competent guitar player. He did one of his baddest rock guitar solos on the very first album. Burt Reed, who later went on to become a producer himself, played tenor. Burt was young too. He was 16 years old. I had to go talk to his mother to allow him to come into the band years ago. He and I were in the same band, Soul Image, when he was 15 years old. So, you know, there's a lot of history there. And of course, the band evolved, you know, brought in guys like Howie Young on keyboards, Phil Thomas on lead vocals, and also Skip Boardley on lead vocals for Crown Heights. Now, I knew Skip Boardley from back in the Cheetah days. He was brought up to New York by Willie Feaster, the same guy, Willie Feaster, the Mighty Magnificent.
There it is.
The name then from Willie Feaster and the Mighty Magnificents to Willie Feaster and the Concrete Wall. Boardley was responsible for bringing Ajax, the trumpet player, from Delaware up to New York. I saw them the first night they set foot in New York City because they came to the Cheetah, and as I told you, my band was the house band. So all of these eventually migrated to Crown Heights, and the original sound of Crown Heights was 4 horns, not 3. It was alto, tenor, trombone, and trumpet. But when you saw them on stage, there was only 3 horns. Why the album sounds so different, the whole key, and I'm not bragging, but we had 4 horns, the alto and tenor, bone and trumpet is what gave Crown Heights their signature sound. And the sound of the horns actually started from the very first Crown Heights album on RCA. I stumbled across a certain voicing, and I just built on it. I built on it, built on it, and I evolved into Crown Heights horn sound.
That first album, so it was 1974, self-titled album, and it struck me as, you know, in the terms of the sound, was sort of like a Kool and the Gang meets like Sound of Philadelphia kind of vibe.
Well, again, it showed the versatility because we had country songs. We actually had a real live country song with you know, the country the guitar and all that on it with strings. We added strings. We wanted to stretch out and do all bases because we all loved all different types of music. So we just didn't want to be a funk band or whatever, you know. And I think that really stands out for those of you that have never heard the very first Crown Heights album. Look it up and you see what I'm talking about. And it was fun stuff. You could see where the band was eventually go on that first album. And again, we all sang. You know, we got our harmonies together and everything, and you know, we just wanted to do our thing.
The musicianship is undeniable. I mean, it's such great, punchy, horn-driven soul and all the other genres like you're mentioning. And how, you know, it didn't chart all that well compared to what would come next. You know, how did the group feel about the reception and how it went?
Well, we were disappointed, of course. People that saw us live, man, I mean, the first time we went to the Apollo, we went there, we did this big show with the Commodores running the show. Commodores had that Machine Gun record out. They came in there thinking they were like really hot stuff. And again, I'm not bragging, I'm just giving fact. We blew them off the stage. And to the point that there was a write-up in the New York newspaper that talked about the righteous blast of horns from Crown Heights coming from the Apollo stage. And we always did great at the Apollo. So, and you know, if you know anything about New York, if you can't conquer the Apollo stage, forget New York City. So.
Yeah, the Commodores, I think, only had like 2 horns, right? So, I mean, they were outgunned.
Yeah, but they couldn't play like we did. And we were stepping and everything. We actually opened up the Apollo doing a Tower of Power song. Yeah, blew everybody away. We all had love for that had horns, you know, Chicago, that's right. And I mean, we were all into all that type of music as a band. So we were doing songs by the Doobie Brothers. I mean, we were doing all types of stuff. When you saw us live, totally different from the album. But, you know, as we recorded more, of course, we had to work in more of our material in the shows.
How much did you guys rehearse? And I mean, did you have a lot of camaraderie and like a brotherhood within the group? Or
we rehearsed just about every day. I mean, that was our job, was to rehearse. And I tell people today, that's one thing that's lacking in those that call themselves bands today. They don't rehearse. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get. Come on. We love the rehearsal. We love it. We rehearse 3-4 times a week.
did you guys do any choreography or more just playing?
Oh, so we did both. You kidding me?
Yeah.
We're known for the steps and everything, of course. We were a show band. We gave you a show. We just didn't stand there and play. We were stepping and singing and putting the horns down, doing all kinds of stuff. So we were just having fun. And you could hear that in a lot of the music. You know, songs like Do It the French Way. You know, we had a lot of fun with that. we learned a lot from our producers. They weren't musician type people, but what they did, they sort of kept us grounded and brought a lot of things to us, like putting together arrangements, doing this 2 times, doing this 4 times, stuff like that. Together, it was like a good working situation.
Mm-hmm. And did you do some of the horn arrangements, or how did those come out?
I did just about all of them. And that's what, Darryl Gibbs is known for.
That's crucial. I think a lot of people underestimate or undercredit arranging.
And what I didn't arrange, I would voice, because I had the sound. I knew how to voice the horn, because, as I said, that evolved from the very first album. And it's very easy to do that same formula again and again and again. And Crown Heights horns don't sound like anyone else. We had our own sound, just like Cool and Gang had their sound. Chicago had their sound. Crown Heights has an Brooklyn sound, no doubt about it.
The next record, Dreaming a Dream, would be the biggest hit in terms of chart success and probably airplay too. What do you think was different, that helped that be so successful?
Well, first of all, that song, we worked on that song and changed that song around so many times, it got to me personally. Okay. We got tired of that. We would go in and do different versions. But again, when you work on something hard and long and consistent, it's got to come out good. We were very thrilled with that. Our first record did pretty locally, Super Odd, which was our very first single. And it did great, like in the tri-state area and stuff like that. It got us a lot of work, but Dreaming a Dream took it into the stratosphere. Got us some dance charts, disco charts, all of that stuff. And a lot of people say to them, that's their favorite Crown Heights song.
And the record actually had 2 versions, with vocals and without. And, you guys started doing TV appearances, and how did it change your life?
Of course it changed. We were no longer can be hidden. You walk down the street, hey, that guy's with Crown Heights. And it was very, very for all the guys. And even after I left the group, I was a staunch supporter. And as I said, I recorded every Crown Heights album. So even though my picture disappeared from off the front of the cover, my name appeared in credits in the album. And that led me to get other production things, other arrangement work, and which led to where I am now.
I want to mention on that record, though, some of the other tracks that I really liked too were I Am Me, and Every Beat of My Heart. Well, actually, that was a single too, but Foxy is on that record also. But I Am Me, that's, got some funk intensity to it.
Well, that was written by Burt Reed, who later went on to do Delroy Morgan. He did the Jamaica Girls. He even had singles on himself. And I was very, 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 very proud of Burt. I've known Burt since he was 15 years old. And I had to actually sit and talk to his mother in the kitchen for her to allow him to join the band. And this was pre-Crown Heights, but and now for him to evolve into a hot producer, songwriter, Burt wrote that I Am Me. So that's a very, very good. That's one good thing. The longer you do albums, everybody gets a shot to write, produce,
Did the group feel pressure after that to come back and match that success?
Not really. No. We just did what we do. I mean, that's it. A musician makes music, and that's what we did. No, we didn't really feel any pressure. After dreaming a dream, things started rolling right along, after that. So, and then every beat in my heart was a big hit to it. So, yeah. No.
Do It Your Way, and you were showing some of the CDs before we came on air that you had there. But that cover, when I came up, that's one of the ones that I remember seeing the most in the record bins when I would flip through. Maybe it stood out more to me because of what the cover is, but but another solid record. I mean, Dancin is sort of like Cool in the Gang meets like Shaft kind of vibe,
Yes.
And Music is the World. I can hear like
Well, I wrote Music is the World.
Yeah, I can feel like, that definitely shares the kind of regional flavor of like Brass Construction type of thing too. I feel that.
That record was really solidified the sound of Crown Heights horns. That's when I discovered the voicing, recipe, and I started using that same type of voicing on all the other songs. Things like Dream World. That's one of my favorite songs. Didn't get a lot of play, but when you listen to the sound of the horns on that, wow. Music of the World started that whole really Crown Heights sound.
Yeah, and so for viewers, know Dream World's on the next record, which is the title track, 78. Another eye-catching cover, that one was. And that one also had Say a Prayer for Two, which I felt was a little like Roy Ayers-ish kind of vibe going on that one.
Well, that featured the vocal stylings of Skip Boyd Lee Jr. From hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. Him and Ajax were very good friends. James Ajax Baynard, trumpet player. They both came to New York together. And Skip had got Ajax into Willie Feaster's band. Ajax got Skip into Crown Heights. And incidentally, I was the one that brought Ajax into the picture with Crown Heights, because I knew Ajax, for years, and we needed a trumpet player. Our original trumpet player was Tyrone Cox, and he still records and gigs with Crown Heights to this day. And Tyrone and I go way, way, way back. He started out, he was a trumpet player on the very first single that Crown Heights did.
At that point, was the group going out, like on funk fests or more like their own, what type of shows and tours were they doing?
Well, as always, we started out, locally and everything. But after Dreaming a Dream, come on, the group was on American Bandstand, TV shows overseas. The group went to Africa, France. Everything just took off, just like a rocket, And that's what a hit record does. And that's what a well-oiled machine. Live Crown Heights was, a good group, very entertaining. Step in, singing, playing horns, When we had added two vocalists, we had two of the baddest lead vocalists around between Phil Thomas and Skip Boyd Lee Jr. I'm still working with Skip Boyd Lee Jr. right now. So it's a long, long friendship. And I'm still very close with William Anderson. Well, I guess we'll get to that at some point, but
yeah,
as we go down. But me and Anderson are still very good friends today.
Outstanding. So you talked about kind of blowing the commoners off the stage earlier on, but as the later 70s came on, and you maybe were doing some shows, I'm guessing with like Brass Constructions or Confunctions or Cameo and people like that. Was there anybody that impressed you? Is there any like rivalry that developed or?
No, not really. We weren't that much into rivalries. Guys from Brooklyn, we all hang out. I'm good friends with guys from Brass Construction to this day. Again, I guess we'll get to that at some point. But the saxophone player did a solo on one of my current projects. than I have now. Nah, it wasn't so much about that. We just did our thing, man. It was a camaraderie sort of thing. No real rivalry. I will admit that at some point, Kool and the Gang didn't like to go on stage with groups like Crown Heights and stuff like that. Yeah, I won't talk much about that. We just had fun.
Did you go on Soul Train? Was that one of the shows?
Yeah, Soul Train.
How was that for you? Was that a thrill?
Crown Heights was great. Unfortunately, I had left the band by then. But I had left the band by then, but I was working with them in the studio, and the studio is where it all starts. But no, I felt very proud, and even shows because they had trimmed the group down to 3 horns. Crown Heights in the studio was 4, and that gave them a big advantage studio-wise. And of course, studio and live are 2 different things. Even though you try to emulate that live, but studio is kind of hard to really replicate what you do in the studio. The guys did very well, and I'm proud of each and every one. And I do like to add that currently Crown Heights horn line, they've all passed on now. James Ajax, and he's passed. Bert Reed has passed, and Raymond Reed, the trombone player, he's gone now as well. So the other guys like L.A. Blacksmith, guys like Tyrone Cox is still there. Guys like Vernon Jeffrey Smith, tenor player. He recorded a lot with Crown Heights in the past too. Him and I both did recording with Crown Heights. So now guys are currently working on a new song right now. We did a song about 1.5 years ago called Mary Mary. And, I helped co-produce. I also did the horn arrangements on that, me and Tyrone Cox. So Crown Heights spirit is alive even today.
So you continued to work with them in the studio when they did Sure Shot and into those?
I played on every Crown Heights album in existence.
Well, that album, I'm going to mention all the albums because viewers, are fans of these things, and there's some great music on them. But definitely became more synthesizer based, yes. I would say, with that one.
But that's when Howie Young came in, and Howie was doing a lot of synthesizer, a lot of bass synthesizer stuff, strings, a lot of that I have to attribute to Howie Young.
Sure Shot, the title track, to me it was sort of like a Heatwave-ish kind of vibe, I felt like on that track, which is not a bad thing. So,
well, anything that is reminiscent of something hot, it's hot. So, we were versatile enough. I mean, we could emulate other people, other sounds. I mean, but you get that way doing top 40 for years and years. You want to sound as close as you can to the record live, and I guess a lot of that stuff did spill over into our studio productions as well.
And actually, there's a rap too on that record. First sign of rap with Crown Heights of Her.
Well, Think Positive. That goes even before that. Think Positive, and that was our road manager. Well, he was road manager in those days before he became manager. Donnie Linton. That was his brother. He brought his brother in the rap on Think Positive, and and then the guys we all got into. We had a great time with that song, Think Positive. So yeah, we acknowledge rap as well. We were in the rap group.
Yeah, it became a little more prominent as time went on. Think Positive actually had a picture of all the guys on the cover, which was unusual. And that record was more conventional, more vocal oriented album.
And it was gimmicky too. But then Do It the French Way was gimmicky as well. Do It the French Way. I used to like that song as well. We used to laugh every time.
Do you remember the track "I Got Something for You"?
Oh yes.
That's very. I feel like a Rick James kind of influence on that one.
Well, music changes. I mean, you struck gold. Everyone had like a Gap band. People say like a Gap band sort of feel. Struck gold, and all that. Yeah, we like to show people that we can do any type of music. And Crown Heights was that type of group that we can emulate funk. We can emulate a little jazz. Well, we're not a lot of jazz, but R&B.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sound was definitely changing with the times. I felt like a definite Solar Records kind of vibe influence with like Lakeside and Whispers and all that kind of stuff that was happening at the time. That Crown Heights was trying to keep up with that, I guess.
Well, the music does change, and if you want to stay out there, you got to try to change a little bit with it. Only sort of nail down your own niche, and I think that's what Crown Heights did.
Still very danceable though, and good party record. But do you think it was mostly internally generated that the group wanted to move in those directions, or was the label putting some pressure on?
No, I think it's more the group. Record labels don't really care as long as the people like it and it sells, and they get positive feedback. No, because there was never no competition between Crown Heights and Cool and the Gang, and we were on the same label. So Cool did their thing, Crown Heights did theirs, but it was a good thing. Both groups could sing. Had a lead singer. When Cool and the Gang got JT, and we were friends with Cool. We were labeled, so we're too busy worrying about our own thing to worry about them. And the same thing with them. They do their thing. Cool and the Gang is one of the greatest groups of all time. They're still out there now. Come on, So.
Yeah, they did what they had to do. Although I prefer the earlier Cool and the Gang, but that's just me. So I moved more toward the funk, than the pop.
Yeah.
Struck Gold came out in '83, and that one really went in more of an electro funk kind of, like the way the Midnight Stars and things were going. The sound definitely got more electro, less horns, more synthesizer, more programmed drums.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, you have to sort of alter things around, to sort of blend in with what's happening at that time. At that point, Skip Borley Jr. Took over a lot of the writing, and he wrote Struck Gold along with a few of the other guys. So a lot of that influence is because of songwriters. And Skip Borley, even right now, Skip Borley's got current project out right now, solo. So yeah, and a lot of that we learned from the time again in the studio. Every time you go in the studio, you learn something new, and hopefully we still can, bring the hits like we did before.
Well, that turned out to be the final Crown Heights album. Why did that end up being the last one, do you think?
Well, as with relationships, they come to an end sometimes. We're just like an old girlfriend. You're riding high, everything's cool and groovy. Suddenly things. The live records at that point, they sold out. A lot of things happened that just changed, the whole, direction. So when they hooked up with Mercury and all of that, politics, things happen. It's over.
Yeah, so '83, and but stepping back a little bit towards some of the stuff you were doing when you went out on your own, and I mentioned in the intro some of those groups that you also had worked with. Made in U.S.A. was one group that was in the mid '70s, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Okay, well, 1977, I formed Made in U.S.A., me along with Charles Moraes, the keyboard player. We had Skip Bordley, no, not Skip Bordley, Skip Slaughter on bass, We had Ruben Faison on guitar. We had a female vocalist named Jan Harrison, and she was friends with Phil Thomas, and Donnie Linton. They all went to Howard University together. And he brought Jan to us. We had her in the group, and we had Kevin McNeil, Kevin Hood, aka Kevin McNeil, on sax. What we did, Crown Heights returned the favor because their horn player came in the studio and filled us up. Now instead of 4 horns, we had 5 horns in the studio. So all the horns that you hear on the Made in U.S.A. Album is actually Crown Heights Affair horn, myself, and Kevin McNeil. So it was even a bigger, badder sound. You know? And then, of course, we had the song out, Melodies. Tra la la la, I hear a melody. And Jan did a very good job of that. And we had Shake Your Body, which is another song. That group eventually evolved into the Strikers because myself, Ruben Faison on Skip Slaughter on bass, and Charles Moraes and I co-wrote the song Body Music. At that point, Charlie was going somewhere else, but Charlie did the studio work with us, and that evolved into the group Strikers with the hit Body Music.
The Made in USA, though, Daryl, what was the vision for that? I mean, it was sort of like a configuration similar to BT Express, right? With the one female and the big group with the horns.
Well, we had 2 live. We only had 2 horns. We had alto and tenor, just like BT Express. Good you say that, because ultimately it was, I guess, a different version of the BT Express. Yeah. And we used to do a lot of live shows with just 2 horns, just like BT. At one point, we were packaged on a tour with Crown Heights, and Ajax, the trumpet player, actually would moonlight with us sometimes. Now you're talking about a guy with strength. He'd do a set with us, go backstage, change it to his Crown Heights out, and come out and do another show with Crown Heights, and physically able to do that. So it's a lot of fun. With that.
Why do you think Made in USA only did the one album and kind of, you know?
Well, we had issues with management and things of that nature, so we decided to leave that. And the group eventually split up, and that's how the Strikers came into being. So.
But the Striker, I'm looking at the years. You know, Strikers album came out 4 years later, so a lot of time kind of elapsed, right? Or what took place in those 4 years?
Well, I started doing production work. I did a lot of gigs. I did studio session work. I stayed busy. As much as I can. To Strikers, we had a band called the Empire City Band, no, Empire State Band, and we did a lot of clubs, you know, doing cover songs and stuff like that. I did what I had to do to survive, and there were a lot of clubs still open in those days, and, you know, a lot of work.
What was your mindset in terms of, you know, doing disco versus doing dance, versus doing funk versus soul? Because as a disco craze, you know, obviously then.
Well, to me, it's all dance. And if the thing that's hot right now is disco, then disco is it. When the funk thing came in, then we do funk. So, and the same thing with ballads. I had improved on my singing. I worked on a lot of different things. I was doing session work, even singing background vocals, all kinds of stuff. You have to, you know, adapt in this kind of business if you want to be around. And that's what, you know, I was fortunate to do. Even the guys around me were that way. Crown Heights didn't start out as singing, they started out as horn players. But we learned how to sing, we worked on it, we practiced it, and we got it right. And you take and expand on it and do what you need to do for survival. And that's what we did. And that's what I did. I was very, very fortunate with Body Music that came out, and I got to do the album. So I got to produce the album. That later opened more doors. Zinga, Washington. We ended up with our own custom label, My Dish Records, distributed by CBS. And that was good. That was a nice piece of change in our pockets. And also, life got a lot better in those days. And
the Strikers only ended up doing the one album also, though.
Yeah. What happened, Prelude Records ended up selling out to Unidisc up in Canada. I guess Marvin Schlachter at that point decided he didn't want to be in the business anymore. And he had all the dance hits. All of them came from Prelude. That whole Prelude thing. Just because that puts me down in dance music history. You know, I was elected into the Legends of Vinyl Artists Hall of Fame, and that's, you know, built up by all the, you know, all the DJs and all, you know. And I was very, very, you know, thrilled about that. The induction structure. I was personally inducted for all Crown Heights made U.S.A. and the Strikers. Very humbling.
Congratulations on that. I mean, it was really strong dance music, the Strikers, for sure.
Well, it still happens. I redid, I have a current remake, a house music version of Body Music out right now by the Bushwick Alliance. Body Music, yeah. It's more like a club house version. And it's with a female, Miss Lori West is singing on it. And doing Body Music with a girl, we gives you a totally different flavor. And currently, right now, what I'm doing now, you can see the hat. I'm vice president of Treasure Rocks Records. It's a label that myself and Neville McLaughlin, aka Tony Mack, we started out of Philadelphia, and we have a current single, an inspirational single by Mack and Gibbs. It's called "By Your Side." And, that just came out. We have the video up on YouTube, Mack and Gibbs, By Your Side. And we also have the hip hop legend, Sherry Sherry, that record on her. And that's currently out now. Treasure Rocks Records, we did do a project on Crown Heights Affair, Mary Mary. That's also all the stuff too on Spotify. So check it out. And,
Is there a website for the label as well, or just go to the
yeah,
streaming services?
Yes. We have a playlist on YouTube, the Treasure Rocks Records playlist. It's got all the artists on it, and check it out. And treasurerocksrecords.com is the website. And of course, I've got 4 different Facebook pages. Darryl Gibbs, Daryl Oleo Gibbs, my nickname for back in the early part of my career. They called me Oleo. You know, started out as a joke because James Brown had Mazio, and someone, you could be Oleo, and everybody. So I just let it stick. But we also have a group page called Rocks the Beat, ROXX the Beat, and the official fan page for Darryl Gibbs. That's also up on Facebook. And, you know, I talk about everybody, Crown Heights, you know, it's everybody I'm involved with, and that are out there.
Well, it's great that you're keeping that alive. And isn't it interesting, Daryl, how cyclical the music is in a way, and that, you know, there was disco then it became like club music, then house, electronic dance music, you know, but it's really all about making bodies move, you know, and have a good time.
Well, that's one thing that we tried to do with Crown Heights Affair, and I still try to do today, dance music. I mean, people, you know, want to get up on that floor and themselves and give them something to dance to. I mean, if you do dance music, that's safe. It's safe, and it's worldwide, and you know, like you said, it morphs. Disco became house. I mean, you know, I mean, now the funk is the funk wave movement. That's what I call it, the movement. And funk is going to be around, no doubt. And there's still people our age, people even younger, that are now exposed to funk and even disco, and they like it. So keep making the people dance. That's my number one goal in life. I've always done dance music. I've never made a dime playing jazz. Not me. So, Crown Heights, just beyond dreaming a dream and the group, what we accomplished as a band. A lot of Crown Heights evolved into production and spreading out with other artists. People like Empress, Dying to Be Dancing, another Crown Heights project. And because the guys involved in the production were all Crown Heights people. Ray Rock, who did stuff, he had the project Rocket, the drummer for Crown Heights. Phil Thomas stuff. Skip Boardley Jr. right now has solo projects out right now that's very, very good.
Daryl, what are you most proud of in your music career?
I would say, first of all, to still be able to do it today and to still have love and respect for it. And a lot of people have come to me and said how, I've touched their spirit, and, they love my music. And you can't pay for that. And to be able to pass it on, after all these years. I started when I was 16 years old, a teenager. Needless to say, I'm a little older than being a teenager today, but I still have the love for it. I enjoy what I do, and I'm still having fun. My granddaughter called me 2 weeks ago when we released our By Your Side by Mac and Gibbs. She called me about 8 o'clock on Sunday morning and said, "Grandpa, I just saw your song on YouTube and I love it." And she's like in her 20s. And I'm like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And, to be able to give and give and give, it's wonderful. And I just want to be remembered by that. I just love the music. I respect those who do it because it's not easy, but the rewards are endless.
Hey, Daryl, thank you so much for sharing all those stories, a history, and for all the great music too.
Well, thank you. And, I never would have met you if I wasn't doing this. You see? So it's a wonderful thing. And I said, like, I enjoy the music. I enjoy my favorite part about doing this is meeting other people and having the opportunity to work with other artists, other musicians, to share ideas, because that keeps me fresh and it keeps me going. So I just want to thank all those out there who consider me friend or who know me or the fans out there who have supported me all these years. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless each and every one of you.
Well, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkandstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkandstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkandstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.